This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with the Public Safety Building Committee for, what's today, September 12th. I don't think we have anybody from the public on the committee here. Review and approve minutes. Does anyone have any questions on the minutes Cindy sent out?
I do. Under 6, review 2014 Public Safety Complex RFQ continued. I just want to, the last sentence, Charlie reminded the committee that the town must vote for a debt, should be DEBT, debt exclusion. But also, I think that, I think the point he was making, and Charlie, you can clarify this, is that it has to be voted on plus voted at town meeting. Because we talked about which came first. So I think the point that he was making is it has to be voted on in addition to the town meeting, and it should say debt, DEBT.
Yeah, that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So must be voted on by the committee and town meeting. Is that what you're?
The town must vote for debt exclusion.
It should be voted on
by both.
The debt exclusion by both town meeting and by
ballot.
Oh, okay.
And everyone loses that ballot until you get to it, and all of a sudden you realize
you lose the ballot.
A lot of people vote in public for something and then vote against it in the ballot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so let me make sure I've got this right. Charlie reminded the committee that the town must vote for a debt DEBT exclusion by town meeting and ballot.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. I'll make a motion otherwise to accept the minutes with that change of August 29th.
And I'll second.
All in favor of approving the minutes with that one change?
Aye.
The next thing I have is the senior center update.
Yes, a lot of activity. We just had a meeting today. We had great presentations by the 2 finalists, and both of them, they did a great job. It was a very difficult decision, to be honest with you, because all the references also came back superlative. So the committee voted today unanimously to recommend one of the companies to the select board tomorrow night. And if all goes well, the select board approves it, then we'll engage in a contract with them as soon as possible after that.
Okay. Sounds good.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
It came to me by somebody randomly today.
Yeah.
Is the church is not under consideration for a location, or is it still?
No, it isn't. That was declined by them after the fact. That was more recently, I think they said no to...
The church declined.
Yeah. At least by the proposal that was initially presented, which was some deal where they, seniors could use this and they would, whatever they presented as far as something formally, they changed their mind on.
The church changed their mind.
Yeah. So there isn't also an update on the land.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, you saw that. Okay. So everybody already got that. So.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just saw it today. You can go ahead with that. I just
Yeah,
saw
okay,
email
so
today.
the Marmon Keystone Realty, Coleman Realty also expressed an interest in discussing the Marmon Keystone land.
Mm-hmm.
And then today there was an email saying that unless it's really high priority for the Moose Brook property, they just literally had a death in the family. The person that was contacted actually just died, like within the last couple of days. So that might be a good idea if we decide that we're going to forego that. I think Chris Fowles' recommendation is, unless it's way up on people's list, it might not be a good time to kind of pursue that.
That was already our last priority.
Right, right.
So I don't see a reason to push for a new family member to make a decision.
Yeah.
So it's the Goral property.
Yeah.
So
Plus
that's,
it all have to go through probate anyway.
yeah. So anyway, that's, anything else, Ed?
If it covers it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. Anything else before we go through the RFQ?
Yeah, just clarification on the properties. Did we hear back from Labrie as well?
Yeah, Labrie and Gallagher and Marmon Keystone and Murphy, we all heard back from. Murphy declined, and the other 3 said that they would like to discuss with the town donation or sale. So that's where it kind of stands. And I think tomorrow night at the select board meeting, I can certainly ask I think that since the senior center is all ready to engage a firm, obviously we have to give addresses and specifications of land. So I think that maybe Chris might reach back out to them or something, but we have to obviously give the feasibility companies information about private properties. So we'll see how that happens.
Okay, sounds good. So we hadn't gone through the last section yet, which was section 9. It's the last like 2 pages. So I figured we would go through that like kind of line by line like we've done with the rest, and then do a quick walk through the kind of the whole thing if there's anything that jumps out at anyone.
There's some extra copies, she said. If you need.
Anybody want a hard copy?
I have a hard copy.
Okay.
For some reason, it goes to section.
So what number are we on, Sarah?
I was going through section 9. Yeah, we'll have to, so there's like numbering and then sub-numbering. So there's 8 is selection criteria, and that has like a 1. Let's make sure this numbering's clean.
Yeah.
But what we hadn't gone through yet was 9 on page 12, selection process.
Okay.
So we've already kind of gone through the comparative evaluation criteria, but this basically says each response will be examined to determine whether it meets all submission and minimum quality requirements specified in the RFQ. Any response that fails to comply with these requirements will be considered non-responsive and eliminated from evaluation.
I'm sorry. Where are we? Page 12.
Yeah, the bottom of page 12 and moving on to page 13.
Can I just make one other comment that I forgot to make, and this is I don't think we've met since this happened. The select board did approve $75,000 for the feasibility
Oh,
study.
thank you, I meant to mention that as well. So the ARPA funds. Go ahead, Charlie. Charlie, you could just, everybody else seems to just chime in. You're more than welcome to as well.
My upbringing was to be polite at the meeting and to be recognized by the chair. Sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I just don't want
If
you
you want
to,
me to yell over everybody, I'm quite capable of
comfy
doing
chair.
that.
I just don't want you to feel that you have to wait when others don't. We've all kind of had a more of an informal atmosphere, so, but whatever you're comfortable with, I don't mind calling on you either.
You make us awkward with your
Just
phone.
call on it. Make the raises changes.
You look like a dirtbag.
Anyway, go ahead.
All right, after our last meeting, I was thinking about a couple of things for tasks that we should add, and I want to throw this on the table for discussion. To provide a projected cost to operate the facility, heating, cooling, and water in today's dollars. Because whatever they're going to be proposing, we're going to need to go and argue a budget to operate it.
Well, believe it or not, is one of the requirements under capital. And if you're going to borrow, it needs a capital affirmative vote.
Right, but it's not in this RFQ, if I remember right. So we need that.
So do we want to add that to task 4 or create a new task? Any thoughts?
I would create as a new task, so that it has its own island.
Okay.
And the other thing was, and a direction on green energy approaches, so that they provide us with feedback as to what approaches we could put into this building that would tie into our green grants and everything else.
Yeah, solar or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, would that be part of the feasibility study, or would that be part of the actual design?
I would put something in the feasibility study to start the conversation,
Identify it.
you know?
in this-
Example, if I'm supposed to talk over people, you know, you take and put in there that potential agreement would be to take and put a geothermal well system in. Because in this area, you have a good water exchange at a certain ground level, taking and putting in solar panels. But make them give us a list of ideas. Then when we go to the architectural side of it, then we can specify to the architects what we're looking at.
Oh, it's a big date night.
Ooh. You know that?
I think it's a good idea.
I didn't call him a dirt.
I think it's a good idea, but I also think that when we were talking to the senior center feasibility group, we asked them specifically because I've seen from different senior centers, like paver bricks as donation. I've seen vans donated by Subaru. I've seen like rooms donated in memory of somebody from town. So I asked them like, can you give us, and I mean, help me out because you also were involved in this questioning. Can you give us some ideas of pricing out like a room or pricing out such and such? And they were actually said absolutely. So I think we can pretty much ask for whatever we want in terms of, what's going to sell to the public. And I think that's going to sell. Like, because people are going to say what's going to be the increase in operating cost.
Right, but solar would help with that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Again, each one of these green items, they're great for the environment, great for everything else, but each one has a different price tag associated with it. So when it gets down to the pricing aspect of the project, we may have 27 prices based upon the 27 add-on green items that we specify. So I'm trying to figure out how the architect, when he does the study, is going to figure out what the pricing is. We don't want to have 27 prices. We don't have
Maybe 2.
a range of prices, but it may get a little complicated when you go to the pricing aspect.
I think just the conversation about like what grants might be available would be helpful just to be included. So even if they only do a couple, that they put out there, even if it was just one, they can say, okay, this one's going to cost you $1 million to do it green, and otherwise not. What's your trade-off? And you look at it. But if they have one that's got a grant that goes along with it, that would be good to identify early on if we could.
Right. There's a grant, or there may be some utility savings for some initial capital costs that would have to be evaluated. But you can go down a wormhole or a rabbit hole, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
I mean, the geothermal is great, but it's very expensive to put in, and so the payback is over a long period of time. Same with the solar panels are great, but there's a payback. I think they're all good. I'm wondering how complicated we want to make this pricing aspect, but I think ultimately, I keep saying I think price is ultimately going to be one of the big items that gets this thing to jump on.
Yeah, I think if we at least, do a rough shot, just a quick scan of the horizon as to what's out there for green, I think it's going to be a question people are going to be asking. So I think if you at least sort of graze over it, because if there's grants available, like for solar grants, that could be, that could be a good thing.
All right, and I know the new bill that just, I don't know the details, but the new bill that just went through the federal government has increased
Appropriation for
Yeah.
it, which that'd be ideal. I think you got to look at it. I think it'd be responsible, and I think it'd be a good sell for community if it was not ridiculous.
I'm not against it, I'm just thinking we need to be careful writing up what the task is that we wanted to do and how that would roll back into the pricing, just to make sure that we're coordinated.
So maybe we could say, green construction elements and how they would impact the base price, and just make it clear that the task, I think it was task 4, that task 4, the main budget doesn't include those, and then ask for the green elements to have a general price with them, what they would add.
And what the buyback period might be.
Right, how long it would take to see that.
Break-even point.
Yeah.
One of the things that was in the senior center presentation, I'm thinking it's the one that we actually selected. One of the subcontractors is a green energy firm.
Yeah, because I know sometimes, like, when I've been working, we create a list of, value, it's usually value engineering options, but it's like, okay, if you change this one thing, you save 50 grand, and it can go the other way, you add this one, go up or down, but they can be just add-ons. But I agree, we don't want to have too many and make that too much of a thing, but.
Yeah, if there's low-hanging fruit, I don't know how you'd word it, but.
Right. So for the 2 new tasks that we're going to add, the first one is we call it a utility. Charlie, you thinking a utility analysis or a...
Projected cost to operate the facility in heating, cooling, and water in today's dollars.
Heating, cooling.
Well, I'm going to throw a little caveat to that. You should also know the estimated cost of staffing and maintaining that
Yeah.
building.
Yeah. Because you're definitely going to open up with a new janitorial staff if you're adding a building.
Staffing? Ed, you'd be looking for them to put that together, or is
I
that...
think it's a definite piece of the puzzle.
Okay, I just didn't know who makes that. I didn't know They don't make that decision,
The architect should have a square
right?
footage calculation based on the amount of time it takes for somebody to clean a building.
Are you referring to maintenance staffing?
I'm
Including
referring to
police, fire,
everything.
yeah.
Everything. I'm basically referring back to actually what that capital piece actually says we're supposed to be doing.
Okay. That almost seems like a sub-consultant or somebody to determine how a police and fire station should be staffed. That's not necessarily an architect, I mean,
I think you're talking
right?
just maintenance staff.
No, you're
No,
not.
he's
Oh, we're
talking
not
like
talking complete
actually.
staffing?
Because it turns out, we're gonna pursue this, but no one takes a look at the fact that, okay, it's a $8 million facility, but you're also gonna add $300,000 on the operating budget side. That's a big piece of the puzzle. And I know the question's gonna come up somewhere along the way.
I don't doubt it's a piece of the puzzle. I'm just wondering if it's the job of this feasibility firm to generate that data for us.
Well, here's the big question. At what juncture is this going to be brought to the public? And those answers are going to have to, and I mean for funding, those answers are all going to have to be done before.
So why, and I just don't know, why would the number of police or firefighters on duty at a certain time change because of the facility? I understand some maintenance of this.
It's not the staffing,
Okay,
it's the maintenance of the building.
okay.
The person cleaning the building. The
I'm,
person that has to go through the building and adjust the airflow controls, maybe some minor adjustments with the heating systems. There's gonna be, Southampton, when it steps into this building arena, it's gonna now have two very large buildings that are not associated with the school department.
it needs to be
The school department
maintained.
has its own maintenance staff.
Okay, so maintenance costs and staff, I guess I'm just want
I
to
gotta
clear.
say entire staffing.
And you including the police and fire
Yes, I am.
professionals
And dispatch.
and dispatch. You say all of them you're including?
Yes.
Why would you include them?
Why wouldn't we?
Why wasn't that recommendation made for the senior center?
Probably should have been.
I don't see,
Yeah,
my opinion, I don't see why we're including police and fire staffing simply because that's already incorporated in the budget.
Is it?
Yeah.
Ian, are we gonna need more dispatchers if we do this?
Thanks for sharing.
John, are you gonna be looking?
Well, for a new public safety
fire
complex, not based on the current calls for service, unless the calls for service change.
event? Okay.
and I can always use more staff, but I'm the only full-time, so.
See, I'm not looking at the building process as a way of increasing the public safety department's personnel. Yes, we need people to clean the building and somebody to do some minor maintenance and stuff of that nature. I agree with that.
We design it to grow into.
But you guys submit your budgets to the town when you need more staffing. It shouldn't be piggybacked on top of this, should it? I don't see why.
I think
Well, if the question comes up and the staffing's gonna grow, if it's not going to, then it's not an issue.
Well, it's not going to grow because of the size of the building. It might grow because we get 4 or 5 more subdivisions in our town, or
Right,
a lot more
population.
residential population,
I
yeah.
agree with Charlie, putting in, if they're going to be looking at details around water and HVAC and all that, that's, I think, an important part of the actual building and ongoing costs. But staffing's going to help us or hurt us. And I just don't know that it's something that we should include in this.
I kind of agree with what you were saying, Renita. I don't think, most people who would design this facility aren't necessarily making a decision about staffing for, public safety professionals in terms of I don't know. I would say we should have maintenance costs and staff and maintenance, but I think it's something else, somebody else, if we're looking for a
Chiefs make that
recommendation.
decision.
Yeah, and if you guys were looking for a consultant to give a recommendation, but I don't think that's this consultant. Do you agree? Or?
I do. I think if anything that what Ed is trying to, maybe how I'm interpreting it is, growth, meaning make sure that we build something that can be grown into and we're not already too small, you know? It's not already too small. Where if you have to add, well, I guess what I'm thinking of is full-time firefighters or EMS, right? You know,
Sleeping
the
quarters.
sleeping quarters, right? So
Well, we need that now. anyway.
how many do you need? How many do you need?
And how far down the road do you look? Apparatus based, do you go with 4, do you go with 5? You know, that kind of thing. But that is kind of in their purview,
I
sort of
think
size and,
that's there as part of the space needs assessment.
yeah.
I think this is more a question of, are they doing a staffing cost?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, what they're telling me, we will have to.
Okay.
That'll be, yes, I know there'll be additional maintenance staffing costs.
Okay, so I'll have a line for, I'll say projected cost to operate the facility, including heating, cooling, and water in today's dollars, and an estimate of maintenance costs for maintenance and staffing, maintenance staffing or something. Is that good? So that's one of the 2 tasks, and then the second one is options for green energy or options for green design. Like, are we looking like at a rain garden too outside for stormwater, or is this just energy green? When you say green.
I would just simply say, give us a direction on green energy approaches. Not, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Here's the approaches, so that when we get to the design stage, then we can pick up that shopping list and see if there's things that we know, grants that might be available, or, or this makes more sense to just do it.
I think when we did the site visit, I think it was Winchton. Was that Winchton that we went to? Which
solar.
They had the solar panels and they used it almost like a carport.
Right.
So
Oh,
we
yeah.
parked, all the cruisers were parked underneath the solar panels so the snow didn't
Like
get
a
on
car.
there. Yeah.
River Valley.
And I would be surprised if we end up with this, we end up with some concept like
Yeah.
that.
Which is, seems like a good idea.
Okay.
Or if we couldn't afford solar panels right now, we could at least have a south-facing roof when the
Yep.
grant becomes available.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good idea. So
Yeah.
I'll make a note that these options are not to be included in task force general estimate. Agreed? Okay.
Well, we need the costs for facility heating, cooling, and that.
Oh, no, but like
But
the
not
cost for
including-
solar panel
Right,
install
none of
wouldn't,
that.
or like if that was a recommendation, they wouldn't then include that in task force general estimate.
That's just a general shopping list for us to work
Okay.
towards when we get to the architectural side. I must say I do much better after the meeting thinking about this. It's like, wait a minute.
So I have a slightly question related to what Rini brought up a little earlier about the senior center, and sometimes people want to make a donation of something like a van or a room or something. Are those tax deductible donations? And is there a tax benefit to a,
I suspect
automobile?
Yes.
Well, that's a guess, because
Yeah.
I had a town resident ask me if they could make a donation to something to our town that would be tax deductible. This person's approaching retirement age and was wondering, because they know we have difficult budget issues in our town, and could that be, do you have any answer on that? And specifically to this makes sense. If this is something, if somebody had like $100,000 that they wanted to donate that would be tax deductible towards.
Specifically to the town, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know if that's true? It's
It is.
tax deductible does it kind of fall under something like a 501c3? It's probably a different number, but,
The town's a nonprofit already.
Yeah, town's a nonprofit.
so people could make a
Yeah.
donation. And I guess the next question would be, do we want to advertise that option?
I think down the road we will. I
Yeah,
think we're going to
down
have
the
to have a
road.
capital campaign for both of these projects.
Yeah.
And I think finding out about donations, what's available to donate, and what tax benefit people get are all going to be part of what we do.
Benches, pavers.
Right.
See that, Don? We can donate that bench we've been talking about.
So where are you putting that under in the thing? I'm just curious.
So I had
2 new tasks.
I had add 2 new tasks. They obviously can't, number 6 needs to move to be number 8 at this point. They could either go between 4 and 5 or after 5.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I was thinking probably between 4 and 5, add a new number 5 and 6. Any thoughts?
whatever works.
So I'll do between task number 4 and the current number 4 and number 5. So 5 and 6 will get bumped to 7 and 8. Okay.
Are we gonna finish 9, or are we gonna go over the whole thing?
I was just going to run through 9 and then we can go run through.
Yeah, I just have some notes on some of the other things.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments on section 9? This is all right from the senior center, how they evaluated everything. It says the most advantageous response will be selected by weighing qualifications of the following factors. Whether or not submission procedures and requirements set forth in RFQ have been met, whether or not the minimum quality qualification. The qualification requirements as set forth in this RFQ are met, whether or not the firm's references are satisfactory, the proposed project schedule, the comparative evaluation ratings, and the result of the interviews if conducted. And then it says we have up to 45 days to award the contract after the response due date. I think seems like enough time.
So that was really tight, and it all worked out, but we ended up meeting on, I think, September 1st, and we had the interviews. And then we had 1 week to get references, and miraculously, we got, I think, 8 references back on one company and 4 on the other. But that was all within 1 week, thanks to Andrew and Janet kind of doing that. So it wasn't a big turnaround, and it just so happens that today was our meeting, tomorrow's the select board meeting. So if it happened where the select board meeting was 2 weeks away, that might be difficult to turn it around. Because don't they have like 30 days to respond to the RFQ?
So you want to say 60 days?
Yeah, it's generally around 30
And all you
days.
have left are really 15 days, which is 2 weeks, right?
Well, it says 45 business days after the response due date.
What do you mean the response due date?
So the RFQs are due,
Right.
and then we have,
Oh, 45 days from that point.
From
Okay, all
their
right.
due.
Yeah, okay. That's fine, I think.
okay.
Very minor point, with the deal with the senior center about negotiating the costs. We have $75,000, and we automatically gonna pay the consultant that, or we're supposed to negotiate a cost.
Where does it say that? I think it says it has to come in,
We will negotiate the cost.
okay.
Yeah,
If it's stated the same way as the senior center, it basically says the cost shall not exceed the senior
Right.
center was 60,000.
I feel like we said that somewhere, but
Yeah, I remember reading it.
The very one says the maximum fee not to exceed $10,000.
Right.
It doesn't say when the consultant submits the fee, but it's negotiated.
Yeah,
so it says the project fee shall be negotiated with the highest ranked respondent with the
Oh, it does?
maximum fee. Yeah, that earlier, just above that,
Okay,
page 2, in the first paragraph of submission instructions, down towards the bottom of the paragraph, it says the project fee shall be negotiated. So my only other question after section 9, if anyone, I don't know if anyone has anything else, was this list of attachments, what we wanted to include, in particular, what we wanted to include for the property locations. I know at one point we talked about getting the tax maps, and then I wasn't sure exactly where we landed on what we were going to provide for the property locations.
well, I think that I'll bring it up tomorrow because the senior center's going to have to do the same thing. So, like Marvin Keystone said, they were interested in talking to the town. They have a ton of land there, so but they didn't specify. So I think there needs to be follow-up by Chris to the 3 people that indicated they wanted to talk about it. Because I think that's all we're doing. 2 town-owned and 3 private.
That's what we said, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll get that. I mean, the senior center's going to need to have it even before we do here, so
Okay.
I think, unless you have a suggestion, Ed,
I mean, otherwise, they could leave it just like the senior center feasibility committee did and just list the town-owned properties in there and said that there'll be X amount of
It'll be-
others.
Yeah, I think that's what we did. We said there'll be up to X number of private.
And that's what I do within the body, what we had within the
Yeah.
body. Okay, well, why don't, if you want to talk after the select board,
Yeah.
let us know. Okay, anything else on section 9 or the list of attachments before we just do a quick, I don't know if you want to do a quick run through the whole thing or if anyone has comments on?
By section or something.
Okay.
Can we put down some dates that make sense?
Yes,
now?
that's a great idea. I did not edit these dates.
I was thinking November 1st for the,
So
The
just,
deadline?
just to look at this real quick, we're going to meet with the select board 2 weeks from tomorrow on the 27th. And then we'll get this out hopefully that week.
Ed, is that realistic?
I don't know what, yeah.
Because you ended up,
I'd have to take a look at when the advertisement in the Central Register would fall, because you don't just do that one and it pops up the next day.
yeah.
You got to do it by a certain date and it publishes the next week, so you got to have a certain amount of date after that.
Okay.
I mean, sometime in that probably first week of November would probably work, but it might not be November 1st. but,
Okay.
yeah.
So I thought either November 1st or November 15th, one of the two, depending on, I assume that could get out.
The only thing about November 15th is then we're pushed up against like New Year's trying to get a response. It'd be nice
Yeah.
to have a little more, if we could do timing wise the 1st, I think that'd be kind of nice.
Well, let's shoot for that.
Because meeting around Christmas and New Year's is going to be a little.
Yeah.
So due on November 1st, we'll put that as a draft. And then,
Then it comes up again on number 2.
right, so. Yeah, it's on the first page. And Ed, I assume 1 PM works for you?
Come again.
Yeah.
Oh, just ask that if 1 PM works for him. All right, so then our committee will have a recommendation to the awarding authority, which is the select board. In theory, if we get them in by November 1st, I guess by maybe December 5th or December 1st, the week after Thanksgiving. Let's see, if we get them, we meet maybe the 14th to review, the 28th for a final review. Tight. Is that tight? I mean, to do sometime?
We end up having a couple interviews because there were 2 such strong candidates.
Right.
So that might have to happen. That'll happen very amazingly quick. Thank you, Ed, for that.
The stars must have been aligned, because you never
Yeah.
know when, one firm might say, yes, I can make it, the other firm might say no, and all of a sudden you're into the next week or whatever, so.
Okay, well, maybe we'll say December 5th, because the select board usually meets, is it the first
It's every other week,
Tuesdays?
every
Okay.
other Tuesday.
First and third.
It's usually first and third. Okay,
So, I'm
No,
sorry.
no, it's definitely every other.
Yes.
It's not first and third.
It's not always the first and third. I'm
It's every
sorry.
other.
okay.
So they're going to be due back on the 1st, and then we'll make a decision on the 5th, is that what you're saying?
November 1st to December 5th.
Okay.
So, like-
Where's the 45 days coming?
So we have 45 days for the select board to finalize their decision, so I figured we need to finalize our decision and recommendation to select
Prior
board in
to
like, say,
their-
35 days, so they then
Okay.
have a little time to
To get the 45?
take our
Okay.
recommendation in the last.
Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't understanding it was 45 days for select board.
So do we want to say December 5th, that we're going to have our recommendation to them?
Sure.
And we can, when we go through this at our joint meeting, we can find, like, confirm, I guess. And then the feasibility study, we'd want to have, if we're still shooting for May town meeting, when do we need to have this totally?
Forget, not just town meeting, but town election.
Which is usually around the same time?
Happens after. Yeah,
Okay,
it's 2 weeks after usually.
so town meeting is first or second week of May?
And right now, if everything fell the way it normally would, the select board's first meeting in November would fall on the 8th, however, that's election day, so I know that's not going to happen. So it's just a question do they push it off a week, or they say, let's meet on the Wednesday or Thursday of that week.
Okay. So what about December? Because we have, if we have our recommendation by December 5th,
It's all gonna, again, fall.
depend how they push that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because if they do it the same week, okay, then it's every 2 weeks again. If they say, we're gonna push it off to November 15th, then that pushes everything else upward.
The thing about awarding that first week of December is it lets somebody, a consultant, get started on something before everybody leaves for Christmas, New Year's. If you don't award till, say, like the 15th, 20th or something, I mean, I guess that's on them to meet the timeline, but. So what do we think, when do we need the feasibility study completed in order, how long do we need it before town meeting? If you're going to present at town meeting and maybe do one presentation before that, that would be maybe mid-April. So we really need all their information by, is April 1st reasonable? Then they have January, February, March, 3 months to do the work.
They have it April 1st, and that basically gives us, what, 45 days?
Right. But it's kind of you push it one way or the other, I mean, they need a certain amount of time too.
Yeah.
And because there's going to be back and forth meetings
Seems
with
kind of
us.
tight for a company, but I have no idea. What do you think? How long is reasonable for a firm to do a feasibility study?
I think 3 months should be enough.
Really?
Yeah, and if we award by like mid-December, I'm saying 3 months without counting that.
4.5.
It's right, it's 3.5. And they should, I think it's reasonable, it might be a little tight, but if they know that going in, then they'll have to allot the staffing resources or whatever.
We
It doesn't usually have to be tight, but
Yeah, I think it's important to meet the town meeting schedule.
Otherwise, right, I mean, if we push it, can't push a year, I mean, that would be.
So when we get this back, April 1st, we'll say, the first thing we need to do is have them from the selectmen to give a presentation by the second week of April, so that it starts getting out in the public as to what's being proposed.
Right, the other thing is if it's finalized by April 1st, we should start getting some aspects of it for the different tasks before that. So there will be some information coming in, at least for us, earlier, but not the finalized presentation and report for the select board. All right, so do we want to do that for now? We can kind of think about it a little more too, and at our joint meeting in 2 weeks, we could finalize those?
Can you review all those dates? I just,
So November 1st, it's due. December 5th, we have our recommendation to the awarding authority. And then April 1st is when the feasibility study is to be completed.
okay.
We'll go through them again on the last. There's another little schedule page.
Okay.
Anything on submission requirements? We did, we ran through it. I just want kind of a last look.
Review.
I'm not gonna like read through it, but there is one that says acknowledge that they have sufficient resources to complete the study, and I'll say April 1st. What day of the week is April 1st? So we're not asking them for it on a Saturday.
Saturday.
So we'll say the 3rd or, yeah, okay.
What is the third?
I guess.
just going backwards a minute, the submission would be November 1st.
Yep.
And then there's 45 days before the award. So we'd have to award it by December 16th.
Correct. So we would have our recommendation to the select board by December 5th.
December 5th, I guess, give us 10 days to, the select board, 10 days to make a decision.
Yeah, with our recommendation. I think we're really kind of making the decision unless the select board, I mean, we're making a recommendation unless they found fault with the recommendation. We're doing most of the legwork.
So the only date you changed was to April 3rd
Yep.
for the completed study.
So going through the procurement schedule, RFQ available, as you said, that'll be based on when it can be posted, but we're shooting for, say, October 3rd.
Yeah, the one, usually 3 days notice, we can get it into the Gazette, Canvas, it goes on instantaneously. The longest wait period is the Central Register.
Okay. So November, well, I'll put the 3rd for now, and hopefully if we have it finalized the week before, say the 26th, if we meet with the select board. Oh, sorry, I'm off. We're meeting with the select board the 20th. Sorry, the 27th, have it finalized, say the 28th or so, and I can get it over to you. And then by the next Monday or so, the 3rd. Is that reasonable? All right. So then we're gonna have qualifications due November 1st. So deadline for questions, I guess maybe the 14th, so we can review them at our meeting. We could meet the 17th and review them. And then the deadline for addenda for us to send them out, maybe the 21st.
Well, I know that when it was a senior center, the chair and Ed kind of worked out the questions that came in, and it didn't have to necessitate a committee. Is that,
Okay.
I mean, are there a lot of details, or do you anticipate needing a meeting to handle questions?
Basically, the committee sent the questions along to, in that case, it was the 2 co-chairs, and they basically weeded through them and put them into a format to go out the agenda.
Okay, so I'll say the 14th and the 21st, so they have a week and a half, to almost 2 weeks to ask questions. We have a week to provide answers, and then there's still a solid week and a half after answers are provided. We're going to have our recommendation, we said December 5th. They will execute by the 16th, as Mark said. And then interviews, if deemed to be necessary, we'll just say, we probably would want to do them the week before Thanksgiving. It gets a little hard having that Thanksgiving week in there. We want to say the week of November 15th, the 15th is a Tuesday, but
When's the RFQ due?
the 1st, so we'd have, I don't, it takes a bit to review.
Soon after that, and then hopefully set up an interview if it's needed for within 2 weeks of that, right?
Right, so we'll say the week of November 14th.
Yeah.
And the interview is conducted by the select board?
No,
By the committee.
yeah.
Okay. So October 3rd, it's available. October 14th, questions are due. The 21st is the deadline for us to send out an addenda. Qualifications are due the 1st, 1 p.m. Interviews, if deemed to be necessary, will be the week of November 14th. Submit design and recommendation to select board December 5th, and execute the contract by December 16th.
From the time we had the presentations by the company, well, actually, from the time we reviewed the RFQs, we had interviews within a week. So
Okay, that's
if we
pretty.
want to get further away from Thanksgiving, we could just say, as soon as those RFQs come in, we have a meeting and we pick finalists and we decide whether we need interviews and do them as soon as possible. So I would either give a range that would include 2 weeks between the time that it's due and...
So if they come in on the 1st, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm going to be hard pressed to look through all of them until the weekend.
Yeah.
So I'd be hard pressed to discuss them until the Monday the 7th.
And a lot has to depend on how many actually.
Right, I could read 1, but not 5.
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking the other thing, what if you get 10?
Yeah, that
I
would,
think we got a dozen last time.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Well,
some,
you think it's realistic that it wouldn't happen until the week of the 14th?
I mean, I could say between the 10th and the 17th if we wanted to open that up to the late that week.
Yeah.
Can we do
That's a
that?
good idea.
Between the 10th and 17th.
So that could be anytime that Thursday or through the next Thursday. I just know it's going to take us a little time to get through them. And I want to make sure we're, I guess, ready to discuss. Okay, so that's the dates. Anything on background and existing conditions?
The spelling, second paragraph in, where it says council on aging.
Oh, that was one I corrected too from counsel like a lawyer.
And does at-large require a hyphen? At-large,
It seems like maybe it should.
I think it does, yeah.
We also didn't put in, even though Barbara hasn't been here as regularly, we also have a finance representative.
Oh, I can, yeah.
Add that.
Finance committee, right?
Yes.
No, she's not on the finance committee, just finance representative. I don't think she's a member. Is she a member of the finance committee? Oh, okay.
Okay. So council at large, finance committee representative there with historical commission and council on aging. Okay. Anything on this first part of scope of work? I have the changes to say, these include the existing fire station, existing highway department, and up to 3 other vacant properties in town. And then running through the tasks, as we said, I'll put between task 4 and task 5, the 2 new ones. Any comments on anything within task 1 or 2?
So what are you doing there?
Just asking if anybody had any additional comments on task 1 or task 2. I'm not making any changes unless there's anything. I had added, made some of the changes regarding the site analysis, 21E phase 1 report, and archaeological, thanks. I know. If deemed appropriate. That's one thing I wasn't sure about, who deems that.
Well, there's a state agency, I think, that you can go to and ask if there should be a...
Okay, so that's fine. Preliminary wetlands assessment, stormwater drainage issues, location of utilities, and evaluate vehicular access. And I tried to change everything for deliverables to 3 hard copies and 2 electronic flash drives. Any thoughts on anything on task 3 or task 4? Like I said, I'll put the new tasks in between 4 and 5. Task 5 is evaluation of the existing facilities in comparison to other communities. That one, any thoughts on that? That's somewhat new, just that, I added that per our discussion. Right. And I said, the last sentence there, the deliverables intent is to demonstrate the need for a new facility and educate the public on current conditions. And then for task 6, which will be the new task 8, we have the presentations, give up to 3 presentations, including at town meeting. Consultant should also anticipate attending, in addition to the town meeting, a minimum of 5 meetings with the committee and/or public.
So you might want to change that first sentence instead of saying complete the above 5 tasks?
Oh, yep. 7. All right, designer qualifications, submittal requirements. We had run through this. I added the minimum of 5 references. I don't think there were many other changes.
I just wanted to ask about C. It says a description of the designer team's experience as it relates to public safety building complex, feasibility, design, construction costs. Provide representative project write-ups, including owner, project name, and description of work performed, size of the community when project was completed. Do we want to have square footage? Because I think that was one of the things we asked in the senior center one, and we didn't get it back, and we wanted that information, like.
Maybe just added the size of community and square footage of building.
Yeah, size of community and square footage of building. Okay, so I'll just add it right after size of community. Okay. Then we had selection criteria, minimum evaluation criteria. We had changed some of these values. I think it's consistent now, but if anybody sees anything.
I have a question about that. So it says municipal clients. Designer shall have completed at least 5 projects for municipal clients. I'm assuming that means 5 besides public safety buildings? So the number of projects number 3 says at least 5 public safety building complex feasibility studies or design projects within the past 15 years. The project shall have had a minimum of 10,000 square feet of floor space. But the next one says number of municipal clients.
They're kind of the same thing,
Well, we just have to be clear about what we're differentiating.
unless we have a greater number, but, so they've, say done a school or a library or wastewater treatment plant in addition to a public safety complex, but that would only make sense if we
Yeah.
increase the number. I mean, you could say number, the only thing, you could say number of different municipal clients, designer hell. I don't know, or we could just strike that because,
How is that on the senior center one, do you know? It was helpful because municipal is a whole different ball of wax, that's for sure.
I mean, with this one, could it be stretched to say a public safety complex might be developed for state police or some other entity versus municipal clients?
Governmental agencies?
Towns and cities?
I've never seen the state police, or state,
Yeah.
We did one for Amherst, we done Amherst, UMass.
okay, point taken.
Yeah.
sure, like a public
The
safety.
police aren't with,
No, we're in the fire station,
they're in the fire station?
go to North Amherst.
Oh, I never remember the police.
I wonder if the original intent had to do with what other municipal projects have these firms completed that aren't necessarily public safety buildings.
Would we have that as a minimum requirement if they've completed 5 public safety?
I don't know, I'm just, I didn't know what it meant, so.
Yeah, no, that's a good,
Now I'm trying to remember, I know who I poached this from, but I'm trying to remember what project they were doing that I poached this from. That might have been something other than a senior center. Nah, I think it was a senior center. In fact, I know it was a senior center.
The senior center one, I mean, they've done libraries, they've done community
Right.
centers, they've done, so I don't know whether we're looking,
Fine.
we don't want to limit somebody because they haven't, but
So do you want to just say number of additional municipal clients?
or I would think number 3 kind of covers it.
You can just combine the two and be specific and say municipal public safety.
Yeah, why don't we, I like that.
Yeah.
So I'll strike number 4 and number 3, I'll add at least 5 municipal. Okay. So we'll do the renumbering and,
So you're just inserting municipal, not municipal buildings and public safety complex.
I'm just inserting municipal in front of public safety building complex feasibility studies. And then for with the new number 4, the old number 5, December 16th and April 1st. The comparative evaluation, we've, changed it to acceptable, so we have highly advantageous, acceptable, and unacceptable, and then I ran through and changed the years or numbers as we discussed. Any thoughts or question on that?
Need to change any of the wording in the highly advantageous, need more public safety building, what'd you just change it to?
municipal,
Municipal.
because number 2 is public building
Oh.
projects.
So 8 or more similar municipal.
Yeah, and that has to
And then
be
you
changed
read
within,
number 2.
that has to go all the way down.
Okay, I can do that. Okay.
And do you want to make that same change in 3? And the,
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and because in theory, presenting to the school board at Amherst would actually, at UMass, would be different than presenting to a town. So, for example. All right, so I'll put municipal there. All right, anything number 4 is...
So there's no change on 3, right?
I just added municipal
Oh, I
here
see.
in front of public
Sorry.
safety in the
Yeah.
bold part. Number 4 was here, experience of professional staff, and that's just the years there, engineer's cost estimator. And then the completeness, organization, and readability, we had changed that to all items addressed, items predominantly addressed comprehensively, most items addressed comprehensively, and most items not addressed comprehensively. I think
We went over this a lot last
We-
time, but I
we
still
did.
feel like predominantly and most are very similar. How do you distinguish between the two?
if I had to say, I would say advantageous or highly advantageous is 95%. Advantageous predominantly is 75 or 80% is of it's addressed properly. Most is really just over 50%. And then most items not would be 50% or more not addressed. Because most really just has to mean 51%. Whereas predominantly, I suppose, actually means the same thing as most at 50. We could add these percentages. We could say 95% or, but then it's like you're trying to,
Become very specific.
yeah.
Yeah.
I personally think it's
Think that's
okay
fair
as
enough?
is. You guys kind of agree that predominantly seems like more than most in your interpretation of the language?
I think so. I think they'll get the idea of it.
So no percentages.
No. And then we just went through selection process. So I'll make these last couple edits and send this out, and are we good for a joint meeting and with the select board in 2 weeks from tomorrow?
Which would be the first meeting in November.
Yeah, okay. No, it would be
27.
27th.
Can I make a
Okay.
suggestion that you
I'm
send an
thinking
email to
2
Chris
meetings
Fowles?
rather than 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So I will email Chris.
yeah.
Yeah, we are, I have it on my schedules.
That's what, yeah, we talked about it. So we'll plan for our next meeting to be a joint meeting on the 27th. I don't really see a big need for us to meet on the 26th as well, unless, I mean,
I don't.
okay.
But you know what you could do is post our meeting half an hour before the selectmen's meeting.
Select board.
Select board, I'll never get that.
No, I'm gonna have a jar in here, and for every time someone says selectmen, you're gonna give $1, and they're gonna give it to school nurses to buy snacks for the kids. I'm not kidding, that's warning.
We're not buying
Yeah, that's happening next time. It's the only meeting that this happens, people. And I don't like being the word police.
You're not the only one. I'll stick up for it.
So,
I've even gotten there.
so any thoughts on that meeting? Do you guys want to sit down half an hour before? We could meet up here for half an hour and then walk down? Does
I
that?
think that's a good idea, just in case something
In case
comes up.
something's stupid.
Yep, yeah, in case I make a typo or mistake and we want to review it, because we also are adding these 2 new tasks. I'll bring my laptop, and can we, you know, when the senior center presented, they put it up on the screen. Can we do the same thing?
What's that?
We can put the RFQ up on the screen for the select board meeting,
We can.
so I'll bring my laptop to do that.
And a USB drive.
Okay,
Only because we have found that not all laptops or their firewalls they're associated with will marry to our projector. So if yours doesn't, and if you've got it on a USB drive instead of on your C drive, I can at least take that USB and plug it into mine, and I know we can get it up there.
okay.
Just download the dumbest software you got for his computer.
Okay, so we'll meet at 5:30 on 27th. Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, I won't be here, I'm sure, I'm assuming we still have a forum.
Okay.
It's 5:30?
We'll meet at 5:30, and then we'll walk downstairs for 6.
Okay.
And then I've got one thing, does not have to go into this, but one thing, because the more of us are aware of it, the more apt you are to remind me about it. The same thing for the senior center. Feasibility, when we actually start working with a firm, and they are to, one of their responsibilities is to develop those, shall we say, energy costs or whatever. We are currently under a natural gas moratorium. So chances are that if they're going to move forward fairly quickly, that these two buildings will be designed with emergency generators or heating systems that either are powered by propane or some other
Okay. Not
say,
natural
fuel
gas.
rather than natural gas. Now, with the public safety complex, can we trade off the fact we're taking two offline to get them to consider to do that? We can ask. So as long as we're taking them offline.
If I was the gas company, my argument would be you're not taking them offline because you're still utilizing the building.
Not only that, we just had HG&E, and they said the problem isn't from them to here, it's from them up
Up the ladder.
the ladder.
Yeah.
So they may not have a lot of control over
Capacity to
it.
do anything.
Right.
That's what it was.
Right.
They really dig their heels in. They really dig their heels in
Yeah,
about increasing on the CFF.
I know.
Yeah, we were lucky when I got here and did this emergency generator. Someone reached out to Hoyle Gas and Electric in the year before I got there and asked them about it. So they allowed that one to be natural gas. A year later, when they were designing and doing the pumping station for the water at the East Hampton line, it had to be a propane generator.
Huh.
Because, yeah, they had not asked before the moratorium.
Where's the church yet?
They ended up with propane.
They did.
They can be dual fuel too. Depending on which fuel is cheaper at the time.
Anyone have anything else before we wrap up?
You are an efficient chair.
Good going, Sarah. Thanks for your drafts and everything.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.